Greetings, prisoners of gravity. This is Commander Rick, interrupting your signal. I've been sort of lonely lately up here, so I started reading some books. I figure if I can't be with family, I could at least read about it. I started looking in the science fiction encyclopedia under family. There's nothing there. Then I checked out Brian Aldiss's History of Science Fiction, The Trillion-Year Spree. Nothing on family. He mentioned Zukunftsroman, but family? Nah. And yet family is the key to everything and everyone. Luke, I am your father. And Superman. He's an interstellar orphan, right? And who does E.T. call? Hi, Mom, I'm at Elliot's house. Can you come pick me up? Hit it, Nancy. Rising anti-Semitism in Eastern Europe has voted English-only sign. 40,000 tons of armed with PCBs blew up the ozone layer today.
Standing by for solid rocket booster separation.
William Shatner will write and direct the next Star Trek.
You know, I notice if you watch too much news on TV, you get a pretty warped view of what's important. Politics, stock market, religious violence, followed by Doug with sports. Well, who's the most important person in your life? The Prime Minister, Saddam Hussein, Wayne Gretzky? To find out what's really important, watch a sitcom. Now, a sitcom used to be a mom, a dad, and 2.3 kids. The Cleavers, the Nelsons, the Flintstones, the Brady Bunch. Nowadays, a sitcom is 4 designing women, 4 Golden Girls, or the gang at Cheers. But it's still family, right? I've also noticed if you read a lot of comics and science fiction and fantasy, you get a kind of a warped view, and you might think it's all just superheroes, time travel, aliens, computers, and magic. But there's actually a lot about family.
The family is under so much attack in this society. And in fact, some people really actually sort of like the idea of destroying the nuclear family, as they call it. I think they're the same people who oppose nuclear power. They just don't like the word. That I try to envision families that are really different, and yet still work as families. I think we're encountering a lot of social problems because we try to still hold families together even though they're, say, single parent and so forth, and we don't seem to see any alternative, which is bad sign, because there's a lot of evidence that single-parent families don't work very well in many contexts. It doesn't help that they're also poorer. And we've got to rethink the idea of the family. I don't know what the answer is, except that I would point out that the traditional family still works well if you can get one.
Science fiction likes to mess around with the idea of family, I guess, because we know the changes are coming, and the more accustomed we get to considering odd variations in family structure, the less traumatized we'll be when reality hands them to us on a plate and forces us to eat them.
The tribe, the clan, the 2-car family, the double income, no kids, all products of their environment. Science fiction is about exotic environments, and it's created some pretty exotic families. John Brunner, Stand on Zanzibar. The world is overpopulated. You need permission to have children, so groups of 4 to 6 adults get together and share the job. Barry Longyear's Sea of Glass. In an overpopulated world, society figures out how to deal with couples who have 1 child too many. One of the parents is murdered. It's a matter of survival. Greg Benford imagines extended families in his novel, Great Sky River.
I envisioned a time when, in Great Sky River, people are so threatened that a unit of about 100 people is the minimum you need to maintain your technology when you're on the run and to maintain your defense perimeter, to keep out scouts. Somebody's got to be awake all night, and things like that. So that the family has changed radically in response to outside pressures. And once people realize that the family is not a paradigm idea that we get from the year 0, but rather is an adaptive social mode that we keep changing around, once they get that idea, then maybe they'll think creatively about the family and trying to invent some forms that we could actually make work as opposed to what we've got now.
Will the family unit survive a trip to the stars? Imagine a vacation trip so long that it's your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren who are alive when the car finally reaches Disneyland. In science fiction, that's known as a generation starship. Now, you know how well your family gets along after 3 hours in the car together. Imagine 1,000 years. In Orphans of the Sky, Robert Heinlein figures the family unit won't survive on a Generation starship. But Robert Sawyer suggests a way that the family unit might survive in his novel, The Golden Fleece.
In Golden Fleece, I've postulated marriage contracts, and they're just like any other type of contract. You and the person you wish to be married to sit down, define the terms, and in particular, define the duration for the contract. 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. If the contract is to be dissolved before the 1 year, 5 year, or 10-year period is up, then as in any contract, the one breaking the contract is the one liable for any damages that devolve out of that fact of breaking the contract.
When science fiction and fantasy deals with families, they're usually dysfunctional families.
Well, that may be because a lot of writers come from dysfunctional families. That's about the only thing I can think of. And I would include myself in that group. So that it may be as simple as that. You tend to write about what you know. You tend to naturally be oriented towards what you've had experience with. And if your experience is that your family hasn't turned out too well, that may be reflected in the work.
Several friends of mine sort of mentioned that to me, that I don't really show full families. I actually do, but I end up showing them sort of off the screen. The character of Rome Franco is perceived as being happily married in Liege Killer, but you never really meet his wife. You know, it's just sort of a thing. And to be perfectly frank, I come from a broken childhood, and I think that, at least in a subconscious way, just sort of, I don't see a complete family as a normal thing, since I didn't grow up that way. And I think I tend to not put a lot of family elements in my books because of that reason.
Christopher Hines writes hard SF, interplanetary wars in a high-tech future. Louis Shiner writes soft SF, political stories, low-tech in the here and now. His novel Deserted Cities of the Heart involves Mayan legends and two brothers from a modern American family. And now Louis is working on another story about families.
In the work I've been doing in the last year or so in researching a new book, I've been getting much more personal than I have in previous books. And I've been dealing with my own family. My father died about 1.5 years ago, and I've been writing a novel for the last year or so trying to deal with a person whose father has died and reevaluating a lot of their family situations. And finding out that my family basically screwed me up a lot more than I'd ever realized. So I'm not surprised to hear you say that there has been a lot of family stuff in my fiction. I just never really was aware of it before, and I think that may have been an unconscious thing. Perhaps my unconscious trying to deal with these very real problems unconsciously.
The biggest problem facing most families is divorce. Robert A. Heinlein again. In The Star Beast, if circumstances warrant, children can divorce their parents. Spider Robinson took it a step further. Parents who've been divorced by their offspring cruise a sort of a singles bar, trying to find a new kid. But are they sensitive to the child's needs, or are they just looking for something to fit into their lifestyle?
The story Serpent's Teeth was inspired by parenthood. I suddenly found myself, against my will almost, not against my will, but certainly against any specific intention, I found myself a parent. I found myself my age-old enemy. And I started hearing words come out of my mouth that I had sworn I would never utter. Because I say so, that's why. And it started me thinking that if one day my child was going to grow up and she would feel the need to shock and outrage me, as I had felt the need to shock and outrage my parents. And that kind of gave me the willies. It would take an awful lot to shock and outrage me, considering some of the things I survived in the 60s. All I came up with was ritual suicide pacts, maybe cannibalism at the senior prom. And I started thinking about the different forms that family life can take, because God knows the nature of the family has changed enough in my lifetime, and I don't expect change to stop just because I'm getting too old to enjoy it anymore.